Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
Located at 109 Wall Boulevard in Gretna, Uniforms by Logo Express provides school uniforms, medical wear, hospitality wear, safety and industrial wear, and so much more. We offer a number of locations on both sides of the river. 2 in Chantilly, 1 in Woodmere, and our main store located in Gretna. Uniforms by Logo Express. Your brand starts here.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Primetime Sports. I hope everybody is having a great summer right now. I hope you enjoyed last week. I was at my son's graduation in Atlanta. Hope everybody enjoyed our Best Of show with Ricky Jackson, of course, Will Clark, and Bobby and T-Bobby Bear. That was a lot of fun. Hey, we might do a couple more of those later in the summer, but hey, I can't wait for this show right here. 2 of my favorite guys literally in this world that I love talking to, sports and everything else. Dino Hansen, who I haven't had on the show, and I'm very much looking forward to our segment. We're going to talk all about the Pelicans, NBA playoffs, the NBA draft. That's going to be a great segment. Hey, also, I'm going to have Lyons Yellen. He's been on before, but I'm looking forward to talking to him about what's going on with the Saints OTAs and pretty much everything else under the sun. He's been at the baseball regionals up in Baton Rouge, the rain-soaked regionals all weekend. But, you know, it's been kind of a surreal week. My son graduates. I get back after a week-long stay out of town. You know, I'm sitting on the couch Friday night, and I get word from a close friend before he was even out in the media that one of my favorites of all time as a young kid, Henry Childs, the tight end. I call him a wide receiver almost because he caught passes like a wide receiver. People forget that 1979 Saints team that went 8-8. They were on the precipice of the playoffs really for the first time. 5 players went to the Pro Bowl. They had the 6th best offense. Archie Manning was a Pro Bowler, along with Chuck Muncie, the running back, who had 1,500 yards from scrimmage. Heck, Tony Galbraith, the fullback, had 1,200 yards from scrimmage. Wes Chandler went to the Pro Bowl. He had 1,100 yards, but Henry Childs was the pre-Gronkowski Graham guy before there was. Hey, that era, they had some good tight ends. Kellen Winslow, senior. Obviously, you also had a couple others. You had Ozzie Newsome, you had Dave Casper, but Henry Childs was in that class. He died of a massive heart attack Friday night, and he was driving in his car, so they found him slumped over in his wheel. Prayers to his family. Hey, but the big news came 2 hours later. I'm sitting home watching one of the talk shows about 11 o'clock. They come in with breaking news. We all knew, if you follow sports, you follow anything, that Muhammad Ali had been sick. Well, obviously you've heard a lot about this, but for this kid, it was my first heavyweight fight of many. 1978, I remember it like yesterday, September 15th. It was in the Superdome. You see Muhammad Ali at Popeyes right here, the massive crowds on Canal Street. It was a phenomenon here in New Orleans. There he is on the riverboat. And then the fight against Leon Spinks. He had lost that title. For the 3rd time, he reclaimed the heavyweight title, the only boxer in history to do that 3 times. But, man, what a great fight that was. I'll never forget this 13-year-old was having the time of his life. Hey, man, this man was iconic. Muhammad Ali, when I think of iconic athletes and people in general, they just don't get any bigger than him. I mean, he was the most recognized person on the planet for most of his entire life. True story. He was the sportsman of the century in the 2000s. This is as big as it gets. He was friends with people from all walks of life. I mean, I'm talking from Malcolm X, where he had a very close friendship with Malcolm X, and so many others, celebrities, athletes, musicians. He crossed the boundaries of everything when it comes to pop culture in this country and in the world. But I'm going to tell you what, Pele and him are the two guys I think of when I think of just athletes that are iconic, that transcend sports and everything else. And there they are together in this picture. I look at those two, and I thought long and hard about this. And the same people that I thought of immediately came to mind. Here's a look at some athletes that I think transcended all. I was obviously way before my time of Babe Ruth. But Babe Ruth, I mean, you hear enough stories that he was a worldwide guy, even though baseball was an American sport at the time. Michael Jordan, enough said there. I got to witness a lot of that up close and personal in the late 90s, and he is iconic as it gets. Jim Brown crossed all barriers. I mean, political, everything else, Jim Brown. And then I put Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus kind of as one. I almost put him as a slash, but those guys pretty much covered it all. But as far as Ali goes, hey, listen, quick history lesson. I am a boxing nut, have been my entire life. 1960, before I was born, but he won Olympic gold in Rome. And of course, we know him for those famous fights with Sonny Liston. He won a controversial TKO in 7 rounds, and he came back with an early knockout of Sonny Liston. Then he ran through a 31-0 record, pulverizing opponents. I'm not here to get in political stuff. I'm not here to get into religious stuff. I'm here to talk about the greatest fighter of all time, one of the greatest human beings. You can say what you want about draft odds and all that. That is none of my concern. You can't put yourself in a man's shoes and understand what he had to go through himself before you decide on your own what he should do. But the bottom line is this. When I think of greatest rivalries in sports, well, call me prejudiced, call me biased, but 1970s is when I grew up, and it's Ali Frazier. Both these guys were undefeated in 1971, and make no mistake about it, Frazier is the one that went to bat hard for Ali to get back into the fight game after he'd been banished for 3.5 years. And boy, was that first fight in Madison Square Garden electric. It went 15 rounds. There you see the fight card, 15 rounds. Frazier knocks Ali to the ground, just about almost out, and he ends up winning that in 15. Ali's lucky the fight was about to be over because it was going to be stopped, but it did go the distance. Frazier won that one. Hey, 3 years later, they had the big super fight too, and that was also in Madison Square Garden. This went the distance as well. Ali won this one, but the one that everybody seems to remember, 1975, the Thrilla in Manila, one of the most brutal fights in history of boxing. I mean, it really was, and I remember this vividly. I'm at this point a 10-year-old kid, and I had been watching fights for a long time. Hey, Ali, by the way, he was 56-5. 3 of those losses came after he had been 35 years old. He lost 3 of his last 4 fights. The only one he won out of those was that Spinks fight I talked about in 78. But this guy, the other 2 losses, I talked about Frazier, the first one, and then Ken Norton, where he got his jaw broken. Well, he beat those guys twice, so he won 2 out of 3 on the other 2. He was 55-2 before he was 35 years old. But man, a lot of people want to remember one fight. It's the Rumble in the Jungle. Boy, I will never forget this one as well. This was right before the Thrill in Manila. This was 74. George Foreman had pulverized Joe Frazier, pulverized him in 2 rounds. Well, everybody's like, okay, he's going to do the same thing to Ali. He beat up Ali for 6 rounds. Ali put the famous rope-a-dope strategy in. And next thing you know, Frazier was too tired. And that's that famous knockout punch. And he was on the canvas, didn't know his name or his mother's name. But I'll tell you what, when you talk about greatness, you talk about these 3 fighters. I mean, it's history. There's Frazier, Ali, and Foreman. Hey, I'll throw some Ken Norton in there. I'll throw some of the other guys from that era. But to me, that's the golden age of boxing. I know they had some great stuff with Tyson in that era with Lennox Lewis and Holyfield. That was fun to watch. But nothing like the early 70s. Like I said, I'm biased. Hey, on a much different scale, I have to mention this because another fighter in a very different kind of scenario and forum passed away last night. His name is Kimbo Slice. Kimbo Slice was a backyard brawler. He brought that term into the lexicon of basically pop culture. He also brought YouTube along. Remember, YouTube was brand new in 2005, and so was Kimbo Slice. And I tell you what, those two helped each other, and Kimbo Slice has passed away. But it has been a crazy year. We're only 5+ months into 2016, and we've had all these deaths. Let's look at some of the athletes that have passed away. We already talked about Ali, Slice, and Childs. What about in our Saints family? Also, Will Smith and Gajon to go along with Childs. Bryce DeJean Jones, a guy that had such a promising future with the Pelicans. He passed away a week and a half ago. Pearl Washington, I put him on here because he is one of my favorite electric athletes of all time. Joe Garagiola, obviously a famous baseball player and announcer, and then the tragic story of Lawrence Phillips. But it's not just sports. It's music as well. I mean, some of the biggest stars of all time. Talk about transcendent. Prince, David Bowie. I mean, Natalie Cole started all off on New Year's Eve. She started this death thing going. Maurice White, come on, Earth, Wind, and Fire, one of the greatest bands of all time. You see the others, all kind of genres right there. Glenn, Frey, Phife Dawg, Merle Haggard, Vanity, Billy Paul. But it's not just that. We've had deaths way more than normal in other sectors. I mean, look at Morley Safer, Gary Shanley, a couple great authors, Harper Lee and Pat Conroy. Hey, who could forget Fish from Barney Miller? White Shadow. I grew up watching that, and I know my man Dino did too. Grizzly Adams. Hey, Schneider from One Day at a Time, the mom. Hey, Doris Roberts, I believe her name, from Everybody Loves Raymond. And who could forget China from WWE Wrestling? But it doesn't go there. Hey, Ronald Reagan's wife Nancy died this year. Antonin Scalia. Toronto Mayor Rob Ford. That one just escaped me. It's the only one I didn't know. George Martin from the Beatles. You see the great list right there. But I'm going to tell you what. Besides the death, I mean, New Orleans, we take pride a lot of times in our funerals. We celebrate death. But there's another thing we take pride in, the culture, the festivals, and everything else. But one thing you should take pride in is the D-Day Museum. And the reason I'm segueing into this is because our lead today, Derek Freeman, is off doing some acting today. I have James Martin, and I was doing some research. I'm going to bring him on the set today, but I was talking to him about I was looking at some stuff, and I saw him play at a Hornets game in 2011 when they were still called the Hornets. He played the national anthem, and I'm thinking, you know what? It's the 72nd anniversary of D-Day yesterday. We have the great museum, and this guy can play it. I'm going to give him a little solo to play our Star Spangled Banner, our national anthem. Here, I'm handing it over to James Martin, our saxophonist. Big game, James. Take it away. I've got some major chills going on right now, literally through my entire body. That was incredible. Big game, James. He's going to join me on the set as well today, along, like I said, with Lions Yellen and Dino Hansen. Can't wait for that. Hey, I'm not done with the Open yet because it's been a big weekend in sports. Hey, it's been rain-soaked. I know I actually got out to the Oyster Festival, got lucky. No rain on Sunday there, but it's been Baton Rouge and Lafayette. They cannot say the same. Hey, the Baton Rouge Lafayette inundated with rain. You know, hey, the LSU Regional, it's been kind of strange. You know, it's still going on. LSU is playing as we speak right now to try to go to the Super Regional. But, man, they got a big win on Sunday night against Rice, but they lost last night 10-6. And I feel terrible for the UL Raging Cajuns because, listen, this team was in the driver's seat. They just had to beat Arizona one time because they had won all weekend long. But you know what? You have to go all the way through, and they did not get it done. They lost 2 in a row to Arizona, including the last one last night. I feel terrible for them. But I got to tell you, the feel-good story of the weekend to me was the Tulane Green Wave. Nope, they did not advance. They lost to Boston College, but they eliminated 2 teams. First, it was Utah, and then in incredible fashion, Ty Graffinini had one of the greatest calls I've ever heard in sports, honestly, when he called the game-winning home run against Ole Miss when Jake Rogers hit the 2-run shot in the 9th inning. It was an amazing call. Go to YouTube, go to Google, look that one up. It was remarkable. I'm so proud for Todd and what he did. But they ended up not advancing. They did eliminate the host school Ole Miss. Boston College ended up going forward. But as far as the rest of that goes, yeah, the softball, the College World Series right now, the women, they've made LSU proud as well. They ended up winning 2 games in the World Series. They lost to Oklahoma, although they did tie it on a 3-run homer on Sunday night, but they fell 7-3. But, man, they showed 52 wins, and it was a great, great season for them as well. Hey, as far as NBA Finals go, listen, hey, we're in Game 3. It's going to start tomorrow night. We've probably figured Golden State was going to win the first 2, but did you think they'd be by a total of 48 points? And honestly, it could have been a little worse in Game 2. That was ugly. That was 40-plus points for most of the second half. But I got to tell you this, LeBron James, he is going to come to play. We're going to talk to Dino about what he thinks if they have a chance. Remember, Golden State themselves were down 3-1. Can LeBron get some momentum at home? We'll talk about that later. But as far as the rest of the sports go, the Zephyrs, hey, they almost had a 5-game win streak. I got to give them credit. They had won 4 in a row. They were up 1-0 in the 9th last night, and they end up losing 2-1. But it's been a nice little run. Hey, the Saints, we're going to get in a lot of this with Lions Yellen in a little bit, but the Saints are in their 3rd week of OTAs. Hey, we were there for the last couple of weeks. The media will be back for one more time on Thursday. And obviously, you can follow us on Twitter for all that information. Lions and I will cover that as well. Hey, by the way, Elite 11, LSU has had some problems at quarterback ever since Zach Mettenberger left, although I do think Brandon Harris is going to have a nice year. But as far as LSU future, well, they got 2 guys in the Elite 11 right now. One guy blew up this week, and his name's Miles Brennan from St. Stanislaus. He finished with the award Best Feet of all the group. He finished 5th out of the 24 they had there, so he's going to go on to Oregon next month to be in the top 12. And the other quarterback, Lowell Narcisse, who I'm very excited about as well, those 2 guys should bring a lot of passion back to the quarterback position for LSU. I do think Brandon Harris is going to have a big year, but it's nice to have some young guns coming in. And by the way, Miles Brennan will be on the show next week. I cannot wait to talk to the young gun. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I promise I'll have Lowell Narcisse later in the summer as well. So if you listen, Lowell, I put you on the spot. Hey, we got a great show for you. I cannot wait for this one. Coming up next, I have Lions Yellen from WLAE-TV, and we're going to talk all about the Saints and everything else under the sun. Hey, you're watching Primetime Sports. We'll be right back.
Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I really want to know where my food's coming from. You'll find the difference in flavor is quite remarkable.
The leaves are a lot more tender than the stalks and stems.
Absolutely. It's one of the easiest lamb recipes you'll ever try. It's avocado salsa turkey bacon burger.
Make something delicious that you can share with friends and you can enjoy the flavor throughout the entire year.
Saturdays at 5 p.m. on WLAE.
Welcome back, Crescent City. That, of course, is the MFG minus the leader. Derek Freeman is off. He's doing a little bit of acting right now, but big game, James. I'm going to have you on a little bit. I see Tuba Steve over there. I see you had a new drummer today. Introduce him for us, big game.
Oh, we got Aaron Lambert on the drums over here.
Aaron Lambert, longtime Saints fan. We were just talking off set, talking about Tulane. He's happy they're back in a stadium uptown. Hey, long story short, Aaron, I don't know if you're mic'd up, but hey, you and I, we went to Saints games back in Tulane Stadium back in the day. Would you remember your first one?
I don't remember the first one, but I remember the last one I went to. We beat the Eagles 10-9.
In Tulane Stadium?
Yeah.
Okay, Roman Gabriel was the quarterback. I remember it as well. All right. I like the man going up to the mic. This guy's no stranger to the media. Hey, speaking of media right now, a guy that burst on the scene literally about 2 years ago. He had been a writer for a long time. He had been with the Times-Picayune, went back to Tuscaloosa, did some writing up there. That's where he went to college at Alabama. Came back, and he was with WLAE-TV.com. And, man, he got on TV, and they couldn't take him off. 2 years ago, basically, he took over for the departed Juan Kincaid, and he has been working with Doug Mouton and now Leslie Spoon and a great sports department at WWL. And I can tell you he's become a great friend of mine, and I do appreciate you very much. Lions Yellow!
Glad to be back, man.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. By the way, I didn't expect to have a guy on 3 times, but, man, we know each other well. We have fun. And he came on, obviously, the very first show we had. We had Jabari Greer. We had Delvin Breaux.
Oh, man.
Good time. And then you came on in a pinch because you were all over the Will Smith thing when Will Smith obviously was shot to death. I guess that was 2 months ago. Bro, let's start right there, bro. I mean, you were there on the scene that night. And not to get into this too long, but tell us where that whole progression's gone from where you were.
I mean, it's really been amazing to watch how this has all played out. And you know, you hear rumors throughout the process and as it's been moving towards trial and everything. But I think the revelations this week that Will Smith had 3 times the legal limit of alcohol in his system. It's going to be interesting to see how that affects the trial and if that changes anything and how it affects Cardell Hayes' defense.
It gives him some leverage, no doubt about it. It gives leverage because now the story that he might have been out of control, but the fact that the other side will say, we're not taking sides on this. When you shoot somebody not just once but twice, you know there's some adrenaline
8 times in the back.
8 times in the back is 8 times in the back. Hey, not taking sides, but that's a fact right there. Hey, as far as everything else goes, you've been busy, man. Literally, you have been. I've started thinking about all the things you've been covering. Not to mention this past weekend. Let's just start there.
Sure.
You were at the Alex Box Stadium. I mean, rain-soaked. This poor guy. Listen, I reached the Purdue Braves game, so I remember when we had an hour delay, it stunk. You had a 7-hour delay on Friday, and then you had even more on Sunday. Talk about your weekend.
Well, you know, it was like I kept saying it was like deja vu all over again because last year the same exact thing happened.
You're right.
It was just constant rain and lightning delays, and the NCAA has this rule where if they see lightning, they have to wait 30 minutes.
Well, we were at the McNeese game together. We were sitting in the press box, and you know, all of a sudden it was lightning, and all of a sudden there was another 45-minute wait, and then we were right to play. Lightning. You had to wait. Now we stayed there till 11 at night, and they didn't play. So you did it all weekend long.
You got to be impressed with the LSU players and the way they've been able to navigate all those delays and really handle them and come out and play well. I thought they were very sharp. Paul Maneri told me before the game on Friday that they had a great week of practice, and he expected them to come out and play very well, and he was right about that. Now, Utah Valley isn't the level of competition that Rice is, but still impressed with the way they've handled it. This team has grown up this season very much, and I think it's Paul Maneri's best coaching job.
Well, the game is going on right now. We don't know exactly what's happening, but this is the game. If they don't win tonight, then they're out. What do you think? They lost last night 10-6. What do you think about this game?
They put themselves in a tough position.
Right.
I mean, they were able to make it through to this final game. That they needed 1 victory to go to the Super Regionals, but it's always tough. I think the pressure has shifted back to the Tigers, and Rice is playing with house money now.
Yeah.
And so
veteran club too, man.
Right.
They've been there.
And what's odd is LSU is a visiting team today, so they won't bat last. So they better come into this and really get the bats working. You see the middle of that lineup: Kramer Robertson, the Jordan brothers, and Dykeman. They've really been hitting well, and I think you need to see really the rest of the lineup kind of pick it up a little bit. Maybe you get a boost from Jordan Romero coming off the bench. Cole Freeman, you know, rounding things off in that 9-hole. You need some of those other guys to pick it up. It can't just be those 3, 4, 5 hitters. Kramer Robertson hit a 2-run shot to get him back in the game last night, but then the pitching wasn't there late. So they can't just rely on Alex Lang and Jared Poche. They've got to have some other guys.
Let's get back to you real quick because I'm interested in this. We always talk sports, but we don't always get into the person. I like to kind of delve in a little bit. Obviously, the previous time you were on, it was all about the shooting and Will Smith. But how's your life changed the last 2 years? And I hate to get all Roy Firestone on us, but seriously, I mean, you were mostly print media. You're doing digital stuff, obviously, and now you're on air. I mean, you're recognized wherever you go in the city, particularly with sports fans. Let's be honest. So how has that changed you?
You know, it's a big adjustment going from from print to television. I think you have to do a lot more with a lot less. You have to work with the video that you have, and you really have to be concise when you're telling stories. You can't You can't really ramble.
Can't wax poetic.
No, you really
Especially on
can't.
local sports, right? 'Cause
Especially
you have to get that.
I mean, you have to get right to it,
Right.
and you have to get to the nitty gritty, and you have to have video to go with it, which is difficult sometimes.
Right.
And I use the example of the Saints OTAs. We just don't have the video. They don't let us shoot anything except stretching. And so if I'm trying to describe the play of the day and I'm showing a guy stretching his hamstrings, well, that really doesn't work. So.
Well, you know what? You are precise, though, when you're there. I watch him, and whether he's with Adam Ney or any of the other photographers, the camera guys, he is on them. You always are thinking ahead. You're like, hey, shoot this guy, shoot him while we have time, because like you said, they let the cameras in for a few minutes, and then they have to leave. So, I mean, you're on it, and I got to give you credit for that. For a guy that's not been in this TV business very long, you have your handle on it.
Well, thank you. I mean, and I got to give credit to Adam Ney and Doug Mouton. They've all been, and Leslie too, teaching me kind of the finer points of television journalism, broadcast journalism, because I was all print and I had never had a class. So I took a crash course in it. Mike Hoss has been great too. And so it's really interesting to see the different mediums and how they work.
Speaking of Hoss, I saw him. He's already doing hurricane detail.
He's knee-deep
in Florida
in
somewhere.
Tropical Storm
like,
Colin right now.
Jesus, Colin's already giving us all the. Hey, talk about some of the stories. We already talked about Will Smith, but what other stories stand out that you've covered? I'm putting you on the spot here, but when you first think of some big things you've done already.
I tell you what, one of my favorite stories recently was Royce LaFrance's story, and kind of just tripped onto that story. Called his mom to get reaction about her son getting a tryout with the Saints.
Right.
And
Former Tulane player.
Former Tulane player, started to tell me about kind of his upbringing, his childhood, and all of the everything he had to overcome to get to this point. There was a time when Child Protective Services almost took him away. He had bad asthma, spent a year of his life in the hospital. They had to treat him with steroids, which made his bones
brittle. And they didn't
brittle.
believe the parents.
But
we now know that is not to be true. They thought because he had a broken leg and all that.
Very strange injuries.
It was a great story. By the way, if you have a chance, YouTube it, Google it. Hey, I'm going to talk about the Saints real quick because we have to get there.
Sure.
OTAs, have you seen anything that stands out to you that excites you that maybe you didn't think before you saw them in OTAs?
Yeah, you know, R.J. Harris is really starting to remind me of Willie Snead last year.
Big time.
And I was impressed. And, of course, look, it's early. They don't have the pads on. But you see a guy that's running crisp routes and seems to be on the same page with Drew Brees and even some of the younger quarterbacks, even with Garrett Grayson. And McCown is playing well.
There he is right there. Look at
that.
That's RJ. How about this? We didn't plan this, and we had that ready.
I tell you what, everybody was just he was
raving.
fantastic.
And that's
last
before
week.
he made the great catch at the end. He made this one-handed thing down the sideline. We were already talking about him being the star of the day. He did that, but you might not remember because Willie Snead came on so big at training camp. RJ was doing this a little bit last year early on as well, so he was big.
Well, you were up there. You were up there at training camp last year. You got to see it. You and I kept talking about Willie Snead and from
day
the
one,
very beginning.
Day one.
Yep.
And I have to say, we're not taking credit for it, but we saw, and I talked to Ryan Griffin, who was with the team, and he said Willie Snead's the best receiver on this team. He's got the best hands. When I need a catch to make myself look good in practice, I'm going to Willie Snead. That told me everything I need to hear.
And you're seeing that with R.J. Harris. He was catching everything the other day. There were some balls thrown behind him, and he had no problem adjusting his body and catching it. And you see the big difference between him and a guy like Brandon Coleman, who has all of the physical attributes that you want in a receiver, but the hands, he just drops way too many balls.
It's like you're reading my mind. You don't just see it, you hear it. You don't hear a thing when the ball touches R.J. Harris's hands and Willie Snead, but you hear a big thwack when it comes on Brandon Coleman's. He's got the physical attributes, but the hands, they just, I don't know, it's like hands of stone. Hey, as far as the Drew Brees saga going on with him, I don't want to call it a saga, but is he going to have a contract in, or are we just going to play this through and give him the $30 million for 1 year?
You know, we always say deadline spurs action, and I think as we get closer to the season, we might finally see some resolution with his contract. And look, the way he has looked in OTAs, oh my goodness, he's 100% healthy. No residual problems from the shoulder last year or the plantar fascia. So I think this is a guy that is perfectly content with going into the season with a 1-year deal and If the Saints don't pony up now, they are going to be in a whole world of trouble, because the 31 other teams in the NFL, I don't care if they have a quarterback or not, are going to want Drew Brees, and they're going to be willing to pay the money. And they can't tag him, because that number is going to be like $44 million a year if they do franchise tag him next year.
All right, one guy that I think is catching people's attention, and I remember saying, hey, don't judge what he's done the last couple of years. He was drafted in the top dozen in 2011, Nick Fairley.
Yeah.
Nick Fairley has impressed a lot of people, not just on the field, what he's done. Obviously, they're not in pads yet. You see him right there at OTAs. But he's also doing a locker room. People are impressed with the way he's handling himself as a leader.
You know what really struck me about him is that he came in and he didn't look like the same Nick Fairley I've seen in Detroit.
Look at him in that picture. He's trim,
fit,
man. Yeah,
man.
he is
came
fit.
in ready to work.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good move by the Saints, bringing him in the situation that he's in this year, because, look, this is his last chance. If he doesn't perform this year, he's going to be making veterans minimum money. Teams might give him another chance, but this is the last straw with him. He's had 2 subpar seasons after injuring his knee halfway through the season in 2014 in Detroit, and that we need to see if he's really back at 100% and has that burst that he's been missing the last couple of years.
But he's one of the few guys that, when healthy and when motivated,
Yes.
can get to the quarterback from the interior position. They got a guy they drafted that supposedly can do that, Sheldon Rankins. So now all of a sudden you feel like you might have a rotation if John Jenkins can come through. So my point being here is he's not Warren Sapp, but if you can give you the poor man's version. One last guy before I go.
Well, just let me say this real quick. Think about it. You got Cam Jordan, and then you got Rankins, and then you have Fairley, and you have Bobby Richardson, who came on last year, and you're really starting
You had me with the
to
first
build
3.
some depth there, with Jenkins, and then so you've got some guys
All right,
now.
I got to ask you before I go. James Laurinaitis.
Yes.
Obviously, the skills, Pro Football Focus does not like him, but that's Davis Tull we're seeing there. But James Laurinaitis is a guy that I think they're expecting some big things from because of the quarterback skills he has on defense.
Yes, and he's so smart, and you heard Drew Brees talk about it last week, saying that he's starting to have the chess match like he used to have with Jonathan Vilma.
Right.
And not only does that make Brees sharper, but it makes Laurinaitis sharper, being able to go against and play these mind games with Brees. So I think the fact that he can help with Stephon Anthony, let Stephon Anthony move over to that will linebacker position, I think is going to make a world of difference.
And he's such a great athlete. Stephon Anthony gets him in some space. By the way, Jonathan Vilma, one of my favorite all-time Saints, period. He's, other than the Dome Patrol, easily the greatest linebacker we've had here in New Orleans. If James Laurinaitis can be anything close to that, we'll have some success.
And the durability he's had, he's never missed a start.
Never. That's key.
Never.
Reliability.
7 years.
Hey, you know what?
Just like you.
Great.
Just as reliable as you.
Hey, the biggest part of ability is availability. That's right.
right.
You get in the line. Hey, I appreciate you, Lions. Always, man, be good.
Congratulations
hey, I've got
to you.
A gift
The show
certificate.
is soaring. I love it.
Well, I got Lions yelling on, baby. I got Dino Hansen coming up and James Martin.
Best lineup in all of New Orleans TV.
I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Hey, by the way, you know this restaurant. You've been a couple
it.
times. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Have fun. You know the Warehouse District or Metairie. Have a great time. Hey, catch this guy at WWL on television on Channel 4. Great stuff every single night, whether it's be reporting or anchoring. So he'll have that. Hey, I have Dino Hansen coming up in a second, but I'm going to have a quick segment with a guy that I want you to get to know. You heard him. He's playing some Stevie Wonder right now. You heard him play the Star Spangled Banner by himself. That was beautiful. His name's James Martin. I call him Big Game James. Last time, I had Derek Freeman come up. Now you're going to get to know our saxophone player. Next, and don't forget Dino Hansen. We're going to talk all things basketball in the Crescent City with him. Next on Primetime Sports. Primetime.
The mark of Legacy Kitchen is simple. We offer numerous dishes like chicken enchilada soup, prime filet and loaded baked potato, baby back ribs, and so much more. At Legacy Kitchen, we serve American fare, crafted cocktails, and we offer a great selection of wines by the glass. Metairie at Vetts and Martin Berman, and in the Warehouse District at Chapatulas and Girard.
North Shore Basketball Training Center is located at 70239 Highway 59 in Abita Springs. Here we offer developmental programs for all ages, focusing on structure, hard work, effort, and teamwork. North Shore Basketball Training Center also has year-round basketball teams, leagues, camps, training, speed and agility conditioning, and other programs to help enrich our students. North Shore Basketball Training Center, now with a new training facility at 3747 West Esplanade Avenue in Metairie.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Look at Tuba Steve getting after that. Is Steve Glenn. And by the way, Deuce McAllister is awesome on the drums. Now that's Aaron Lambert filling in for our guy, Derek Freeman, the guy you don't see up there right now. Well, because he's sitting next to me is James Martin, Big Game James, our saxophone, who came from dead last in the March Madness pool. I mean, dead far last. And then he came and ended up winning it.
Slow and steady wins the race,
Slow
Scott.
and steady. You were the epitome of the tortoise in the hair. The hair ended up pulling out. Buddy healed. All I needed was one more victory from you, and you couldn't give it to me. I would have wiped this thing clean. But Big Game James, I had our lead guy, Derek Freeman, on, obviously 2 weeks ago when we had our last live show before we did the best of last week. I started thinking about this week's show, and I'm like, we got to get to know Big Game James a little bit, because this guy that you see every week, well, he's playing all over the city of New Orleans, and he's playing with big-name people. Hey, James, first of all, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's great to see you, bud. Hey, I talked to our mutual friend, Jerry Moran. Obviously, Jerry Moran, fine photography, New Orleans photography.
One of the best.
He's great. He's fantastic. He couldn't stop raving about you. When he heard that you were going to be doing this with us regularly, he goes, do you realize how good this guy is? No, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've seen him play a couple times. He's very good. He said he's one of the best, not just in the city of New Orleans, in the country. And the more I've done research on you heard the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner that James did, if you saw the beginning of the show, fabulous. And what caught my eye, James, was you did it at that Hornets game back in 2011. Yep, they were still the Hornets back then. And you blew me away, man. I mean, do you do this frequently? And talk about that night.
Yeah, well, it's always a little intimidating going into a big arena where there's 5,000 to 6,000 people.
We like to have 17,000. 5 or 6,000.
Well, that's still a lot of people that are focused on you, listening to you play the national anthem, a song that everybody's familiar with. So it's a little intimidating.
I wasn't joking you. I was joking the Pels / Hornets, because we'd like that. But you're right. That year, Chris Paul had already gone, right?
Yeah, 5 to 6 is pretty gratuitous, but
But no, you play around town. I mean, listen, I don't know what your relationship with Trombone Shorty, but he's become a big name here, and I know he goes through saxophone players pretty regularly. But you had
since I left.
Since you left, were you more of the regular guy?
I was there for 7 years.
Wow.
I started playing with him when we were in high school, going to NOCA together. I was sitting in class with him and John Baptiste, the leader of the Late Show band.
The Late Show. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
Hey, look. Hey, you're only a few steps away. This is the beginning of a Late Show. Hey, but I have to ask you though, as far as he goes, were you with him in Atlanta at the Atlanta Jazz Festival? That's when I met him when he was like 16, maybe 17, maybe 18. And we ended up talking for like an hour in between. He had just finished playing. He was signing some CDs. Were you there
I
then?
remember a few festivals in Atlanta.
That's
so
interesting.
Probably there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're playing with his cousin pretty regularly. I know you just stopped, but talk about that gig you've been playing with.
For the last 3 years, I've been playing with Trombone Shorty's cousin, Glenn David Andrews. We released an album, Redemption. It made it to number 8 on the Billboard Blues charts. I got a few original compositions on it. So it's we did a lot. We toured all over the country, all over the world. Did some shows in Paris. Throughout
Did you
France,
say Paris,
Brazil.
Holland, over there, across the pond in Paris?
Yeah, and down in Brazil. So we've been all over.
By the way, we had a Newman grad earlier. We're going to have a St. Aug grad coming up. And now right here we have another Catholic League pride. We have a Rummel Raider.
Yeah.
So how long ago did you get out of Rummel?
About 15 years ago.
Was it 15? You could have told me
14,
7. I would have been like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
I
2002.
For a lot of late nights, you're staying pretty youthful.
Well, yeah.
I mean, what's your secret? I did call you when you were running yesterday.
Genetics.
So that might be
Yeah. I run. You know,
Right.
at one point, I ran 6 marathons in 7 years. I was doing it every year, and I just kept up that shape for a long time. I think that helped. Genetics too. But
Is this your glamour shot right here? Because that is one darn good looking shot.
yeah. Well, thanks, Scott.
I mean, you're a very handsome man. I'm Redhead Tsunami, you know, so there's no worries there. But hey, real quick, as far as you playing in town here, talk about what you're doing with Derek Freeman, the leader. Y'all are recording something right now, and he was on 2 weeks ago talking about, you know, y'all are going to put something out very soon.
Right. We just finished up this recording, working with the great organist Nigel Hall, and also Tracy Freeman's producer. The Harry Connick Jr.'s producer, Tracy Freeman, who
Nice.
mastered and mixed it. That should be released in a few months. Also got a lot of originals that I've been putting on my shows that I'm going to record soon and release by the end of the year too.
So that's with the MFG, but you also have the James Martin Band, and you have an album, which I love the album cover. I don't know.
Yeah.
Talk about this. That was awesome. James Martin had, I guess it came out, and you have a story behind this. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, my family goes way back in the city in southern Louisiana, and in 2012, November 17th, marked the 250th anniversary of my ancestors, Francois Martin and Marguerite Dennis, being married, and it was then a wooden chapel that burnt down since.
That's pretty cool, though.
250 years, yeah. So.
Well, it's funny because my mom's name was Martin, Martine, the same thing, and they've been around.
Probably related.
Somewhere down the line. You never know. I know it's kind of common. Hey, talk about the other stuff you're doing in town, though. You're playing some gigs around town and where people can come see you. Where do you go?
Yeah, well, the best place to come see me is with my band. I've been playing every Thursday at this Martini Bar, RF's Martini Bar in the Quarter.
Nice.
And also some Saturdays at the Saint Hotel, although there's a few that I won't be there this month. Actually, I'll be in St. Thomas tomorrow, so I'm going on a little vacation.
I got to ask you a question, though, real quick about the, you know, about the other stuff you're doing in town. You play with Ernie Vincent. I mean, that's a legend.
Yeah,
I mean, talk
Louisiana
about that
Music
experience.
Hall of Fame. Well, Jerry Moran, our mutual buddy, was the one that called me for it. And it was right after I finished playing with Trombone Shorty, and I was like, of course I want to play with the legend himself, Ernie Vincent.
What was that like, man?
Oh, such a learning experience. It was a lot of fun, too. I mean, Ernie, he's got so many stories about back in the day, they would just blow your mind.
Back in my day.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're going to get this ball signed, but I got to tell you, James, this has been a pleasure. And by the way, check him out whenever he goes. Go check him out at the Saint when he's there on Saturdays, and also the Thursday at the RF Martini Bar. Is what you're saying? Hey, I don't have the pen right here, but you're going to get this on here. I can't wait to get a James Martin on my Saints ball. Hey, man, I appreciate everything you do. Every week you come in with a great attitude, and I just want to thank you for that, dude.
Thank you, Scott.
Absolutely. Listen, one of the best. Take some pride because we have him right here on our show. I'm proud of him and Derek and Tuba Steve and Aaron and all the other guys that come in and play. I'm very honored to have them and very blessed as well. And James, you're a big part of that. So, hey, we're coming back. Well, listen, man, when I first met this guy a few years ago, we clicked immediately because we have one love that we love pretty much above all else in sports, and that's basketball. This guy played for St. Aug, superstar there, played for the Oregon Ducks, played some overseas, but now he's back. He's a Renaissance man. He's an actor. He does all kind of things around the city of New Orleans. He's a man about town. His name is Dino Hansen. Coming up next, right here on Primetime Sports. Crescent City, man, I've had a lot of fun. That is the MFG. I want to thank James Martin again for coming on and lion gelling earlier in the show. But this is one I've been waiting for a long time. His name is Dino Hansen. If you're in the sports scene here in town, you know him. If you're in the music scene, you know him. He is with 106.7, old school 106.7. I dare say one of the few guys in the country that has a Sexy Saturday show. And then on Saturday, and then a gospel show Sunday morning. He atones for his sins every single weekend. His name is Dino Hansen. What's up, my man?
My man, Scotty.
Good to see you. Hey.
Good to be here, brother. Appreciate it,
From
man.
day, by the way, both Catholic League guys. I'm about 4 years before you. But from the moment we got to know each other a couple years ago, it's been instant love, basketball and other stuff. It's just great to have you here, man.
Mutual respect, man. Greatly appreciate you, Scotty A, man. Glad to be a part of Primetime Sports with Scotty A, man. This is fantastic. Love what you're doing here, man. Great set. Big game. James is on the set today. Lions yelling, man.
Good stuff,
Fantastic stuff, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you know, a lot of times we have like these big athletes, you know, the Willie Roasts and the Ricky Jacksons and the Will Clarks, etc. We got one right here. Dude, this man played at Oregon. He was a superstar at St. Aug. You don't go to Oregon if you can't play basketball. Let's be real. He played some professional stuff overseas. But talk about the whole progression from a Catholic League kid in the mid to late 80s and what you've done since then.
All right, well, real quickly, I most certainly have to mention, you mentioned Big Game James. And I love the name Big Game James because of my love for James Worthy, who I think was one of the greatest Lakers and North Carolina players ever.
If people know me well, I've always said this. Pistol Pete, my favorite player of all time, but when you're talking college basketball, Chris Jackson took a little thunder later, but it was Big Game James Worthy. I was at the 82 final. Our guy Aaron Lambert back there, he was at the 82 final when Jordan hit the big shot, but Big Game was the best player on that team.
Absolutely. And, of course, you mentioned Chris Jackson. I remember playing against Chris when I was in high school at St. Aug in the Newman tournament.
Wow.
Ironically enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Lions went to Newman, so we're tying this all together.
It ties it all together.
I played in the Newman tournament many years. That's interesting because it used to be in the little gym when I was there. Had they moved on to the big palestra by then?
They had moved on to the palestra by then. Yes, they did. So it was a fantastic time. But New Orleans raised Sixth Ward guy because I mentioned Big Game James because of the fact that he played with Trombone Shorty. Well, I'm very good close friends. They're like brothers and family to me. James Andrews, Glenn David Andrews, Trombone,
Andrews.
the entire family. I mean, I'm a Sixth Ward Treme guy.
Right.
Went to St. Aug.
Right in the hood.
Right. This is all I knew.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, from the time I came out of the womb, all I knew was St. Aug. Everything. And at that time, St. Aug was winning state championships when they had Coach Otis Washington there and Anthony Simmons, who was my uncle. So my entire family, all the men in my family, Thad Fusher, Noel Fusher, Ernest Raleigh, Joe Carter, my dad, everybody's all St. Aug.
I got to know Thad in his AAU coaching days before he became an agent because he was bringing Jonathan Bender and Chris Duhan and all these guys up to Atlanta to be on my show.
Right.
And then we became agents right about the same time. And so Thad, you bring in a name. And
Lester Earl,
Anthony Davis's agent.
AD.
So enough said right there. By the way, we could talk St. Aug. By the way, I'm going to say this real quick. First time I heard you, I'm listening to our good friend Gus Cattingill's show years ago, 3 years ago maybe, and I was like, dude, who is this dude talking NBA? This dude knows what he's talking about. I got to get him on. And sure enough, I just called you out of the blue, and I'm like, man, I love what you're doing over there. I don't want to step on any toes, but you know, I'd love to have you on. And you came on a couple stations ago, not even ESPN. This was like GSO years.
GSO days,
And you came on, we did a full thing, and it's been basketball love ever since. You've had a lot of roles, man. I mean, you're at 106.7. You know, I just mentioned Sexy Saturday, and then obviously the gospel
Sunday
show.
Morning
You won an
Inspiration,
award.
the gospel show. Yeah.
You won an award. So talk about that whole thing.
2015 New Orleans Viewer Choice Awards winner for Best Gospel Show here in the city. Also, Sexy Saturday, like you alluded to, where I talk love and relationships.
Give me a Sexy Saturday voice. Give it to me. Come on, putting you on the spot.
Scotty, this is the Sexy Saturday voice.
I hear it, baby.
You get it all the time, 24/7. It is who I am. But you're still, being a good Catholic boy that I am from New Orleans, you still have to go in a tone on Sunday morning, man.
Absolutely, you do.
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
And, of course, like we alluded to, after St. Aug, played ball at the University of Oregon, which I love dearly. There are two institutions, even when I talk to kids at basketball camps, the most important thing I try to tell kids is that don't just pick an institution that is going to take care of you because you see all the great sports that they do there at the university. Pick a school that if something was to happen to you, you would still want to attend that university and that people actually care about you.
Yes.
That's exactly what I feel about St. Aug and what I feel about the University
You're
of Oregon.
passionate about your teams, and I love that.
I'm extremely passionate
And
about my
you know,
school and my teams.
And your city.
And my city, absolutely, 100%. I love, here's the thing about it, Scotty, and we talked about this off camera before. For the first 21 years of my life, I had speech impediments to the point that I used to stutter extremely bad. But
it's hard to even imagine now.
But my faith and my diligence, reading, loving the English language, I spent a lot of time working hard at being able to speak accordingly and concisely. So New Orleans will always be a part of me, regardless of whether I lived overseas when I was playing ball for a while, whether it be when I lived in California, acting,
right?
Which, you know, one of the greatest moments for me, acting.
Well, first of all, here's your first commercial, or one of your first commercials about 19, 20 years ago.
Yes,
Eddie
it was.
Saper.
Yeah.
Did he get elected?
He got elected as the councilman at large, and I would have to say a lot of that was the credit of me being in the commercial.
He got it done, Eddie. You owe him a little favor, a little political perk. You know what I'm talking about? But talk about real quick, because I got to get into the Pelicans. But real quick, the acting thing, you're still loving it?
Yes, I still do acting here and there all around the country as well. Have a couple commercials that's out right now, a few videos that are coming out. Actually have a script that I'm finally finishing up, and everything goes well. I don't want to mention any names yet, but I'll be the director and writer of this, as well as starring in it. And it's important to me that the company that's doing it is shooting it here in New Orleans, which is huge for me.
What I love about this guy is I see him at games too. I mean, I'll be like at a high school game, and I'm like, all of a sudden Dino walks in the gym because I'm a basketball nut, and I know you are too. I go to as many college games, of course, Pelicans games. Anytime I'm on the road, I'm catching NBA if it's in a city. But high school games too, it's where it all started. And you have a role with the Pelicans with Dell. And listen, I'm glad they can continue in this thing because he's had a lot of bad luck with injuries. We know the Pelicans, they've been disappointing, but you can't overestimate 350 missed games with injury. I don't care who's coaching. Pat Riley and Phil Jackson would have a hard time winning.
There is no team in the NBA in the past 2-3 years that has had to endure more injuries on their team than the New Orleans Pelicans. Dell does get a lot of the blame, if you will, but I think a lot of it, and I most certainly say a lot of it, is unwarranted. The situation with Drew Holiday, they didn't disclose all the information. But let's not forget, the year prior to that, Drew Holiday was an NBA All-Star point guard in this league.
I tell people that all the time.
So it was a no-brainer to make this decision and get Drew here. I'm extremely happy that he was healthy this past season, and he played a huge factor for the Pels this season as well, man.
By the way, I did some research myself, and I don't know, I didn't see this anywhere else. When he gets 29 minutes a game, and he didn't get that till after
restrictions
were
lifted.
23.5 points and 8.7 assists. Put that, whenever you got 29 minimum, that's all-star type numbers. All right, I got to get to the big fella.
Yeah.
I would be willing to say that nobody in the city other than his agent that doesn't play on the Pelicans or in the organization is closer to the AD than you. Now, I know that, and I mean it, and I know it's true. So where is he at, man? Because the guy started season 111. He had no starter other than himself healthy. He's a young guy. Frustration, obviously. Who wouldn't be frustrated? But where's his head at now going into next season? Can he put this season behind him, or is it still lingering?
Well, I'll tell you this. One, most importantly, Pelicans fans, he is ahead of schedule when it comes to his rehab right now. So that's a plus right there. Secondly, psychologically, he is still locked in, loaded, and committed to this organization. I think early on this season, the problems came with Alvin Gentry's system in that they were trying to make him be this perimeter basketball player, which didn't bode well for AD. It doesn't mean he can't step out and shoot a three here or there, but that's not his strength.
That's a happy AD I want to see more of.
That's the happy AD.
Right.
And AD is a guy who is going to leave it all on the court.
Yes,
this is a guy who, before the game even starts, he is locked and loaded. I'm honored to be as close to him as I am and his family. Here's the thing about AD. People will say, well, why is he diving in the stands for balls? The reason why is because he doesn't understand that he has to take certain plays off in that I have to go 100% all the time. He has to make a difference. Unlike some players in the NBA who don't show up in the fourth quarter, AD believes that he has to make every single play. So mentally he's right, Scotty A, and he's still committed to this organization.
I can't believe we've already had 14 minutes fly by. We've only got a couple. We're going to do a
we
whole.
We do this every time.
We're going to do a whole hour, but I'm not done because I got to ask you. Okay, there's room for improvement. Okay, real quick, on top of your head, when you think of the draft slot at 6, what you like to see done there, and possible free agent, just kind of. I'm going to give you the floor for 2 minutes. Let me go.
It's funny that you said, "What would I like to see done?" Because that's the name.
D-U-N-N. D-U-N-N Dunn. All right, come on, keep talking.
Chris Dunn.
Chris Dunn from Providence.
Chris Dunn from Providence. Here's the reason why. When you look at the teams that made the playoffs this season and the teams that are still hanging around, that being Cleveland and, of course, Golden State, they all
love
have
this kid,
a
by the
point.
way.
I love his length.
Yes.
6'4" with a 6'9" wingspan. I'm 6'5" and
he's
6'8"
a jet
wingspan.
that gets up and down the court.
He gets up and down the floor. He pushes the attack defensively. One of our drawbacks this past season was, in the past couple of seasons, was our perimeter defense lacked. Chris Dunn is a guy who gets it done. We also need a point guard, when you look at it now, who is going to push the attack.
Energy.
Push the attack
Energy
every
player.
single time and make other players well with that. Drew Holiday would be beneficial to this.
Infinitely better.
Infinitely better,
Right.
and this team would be better, Scotty.
So let's just go ahead and get Chris Dunn.
Yes.
All right, here's the thing. I'm bringing him on for a full hour, at least 45 minutes. We're going to do this during free agency, probably the second week of July. Put it on your schedule now, a month from now, because we're going to talk one-on-one basketball, and we're going to it's going to be that little time period before Saints start free agency, so we're going to have a lull, and we're going to do all Pelicans for an hour. I can't wait for this. Dino Hansen, this is what we call an appetizer in this business. You know what it's all about.
My man.
Hey,
brother.
check him out all over the place. He's a true Renaissance man, particularly if you love the Pels, man. It's all over. Go to his Twitter. We put that up there, at DinoHoops11. By the way, I was born on the 11th. Were you?
No.
All right. I got to rap. I thought that's my be what you did. But I got to rap. Hey, by the way, you can check out some stuff. Each day I put up stuff on PelicansPride.com and, of course, SaintsInsider.com. Deuce McAllister has now joined forces, and he will be the main publisher at Saints Insider, and I'm going to be helping him out. That gives me more time for Pelicans Pride. But I want to thank everybody out there. You can go to my Twitter, at DScottAlexander. Couldn't get it done without my producer, Will Hill. Hey, Ron and Jim, the guys that run it all, they're the best. How about what we did with my man Josh J. Smooth back there, and Christopher came in, and all the guys in the band, Dino Hansen, Lyons, Jellin, and of course James Martin, and all the great guys that filled us in, the Redhead Tsunami, Naila, everybody else, thank you. We'll be back next week. I've got a big, big show for you there on Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander.